Good morning. I'm NJ from Lioness Publications, and today we're going to take a look at Mexico. I've been meaning to do an analysis on their charts for a few weeks, but so many other things have come up in the interim. So let's sort of reevaluate where Mexico is. Trump has blamed them for the drugs coming across the border, just like he has blamed Canada for drugs going across the border. And in this case, yes, Mexico, the cartels are bringing in drugs. Now, whether it's coming in through the border or whether it's coming in through other ways is, I think, there are statistics out there that will tell you. But Trump has noted that he may actually go on to Mexico to deal with the cartel himself. And that is an issue because Mexico is a sovereign country. You can't just go into another country. Now, Trump has also been very heavy-handed with the tariffs with Mexico. And the leader of Mexico has been actually very good at sort of toning down the rhetoric, doing most of the dealings in private. Hard to say whether, they've reached something that's a good conclusion or not. But she has to be credited with being able to deal with Trump at some level. Now, when we look at Mexico as a country, it did have a Pluto opposing Mars, and this was earlier. That's actually moved away. But this was actually, there was power struggles, and this was between Mexico and the United States. Very aggressive confrontations, and this was from Trump. He also was also causing upheavals in the country itself. So that was an issue. And as noted, Trump was actually threatening to use military force to go into Mexico to deal with the cartels. That's an issue. Now, that was a while ago, and that seems to have moved out. So that influence is slowly moving away, which means that we still have the undertones from it, but hopefully we don't have the actual incursion into the country, that Trump threatening that. What we did have right around 8/5, and this was Sun is squaring the Mars. In this case, the Sun is the country's identity, and this isn't a progression. So it's the Sun. The progression is a natal chart that moves forward. So the Sun actually is an extension of the identity. So this is the country itself, Mexico, not sure how to act. So that's the square Mars. So they want to act, but in effect, their identity is not sure whether it's in their best interest. And again, this Sun square Mars means that they are involved in that. So they're looking at their identity and saying whether they need to act. And they wanted to, but country, in effect, the identity was saying, no, we shouldn't do this, that it's not in the best interest of the country. So this could have been they wanted to retaliate against the tariffs. They wanted to say stuff, but they just sort of tapped it down, saying it's not in our best interests. So the leadership really, and the country itself, the institutions, really took the best course at that time, it appears. We'll know when history books come back and look at this. Now, what's coming up? Well, on September 10th, we had Saturn squaring Uranus. Saturn is the institutions, square is a difficult angle, and Uranus is the change, the revolution. So in this case, they're probably tightening controls. They're afraid of having a rebellion of the possibly people, not so much against them, but maybe against what's happening from other countries. So the country itself, which is Saturn, the institutions, the government, is looking at what resistance there is and trying to deal with that. Uranus could also indicate there's going to be economic instability. So that is something the country is very aware of, and they are trying to identify the best ways to proceed. But it's a square, so it's difficult. The next thing we have is Saturn is conjuncting Pluto. And that's actually on 9/18, so that's going to be coming up. So this is actually a power consolidation. So this is Saturn, the existing institutions, and in effect, we're conjuncting it. It's emphasis on Pluto, which is control, which is power. So that's actually, it's a good step if the institutions are what the people want. If it's not, then it's not such a good step. But in this case, it could mean that there's going to be some type of overhaul. So when you have Pluto involved, there's always some type of destruction or recreation. Okay, so it's a cycle of destruction and recreation going on. So with Pluto, typically that's what you're seeing. There's also a chance that we might have resource scarcity in that country. There, again, if they're not exporting, they're not having that revenue, and that can impact the wallets of the people in the country, which means that they may not be able to bring in goods. And as a note, the same thing is happening in the States, but we're really not seeing it as much. We do have imports coming in, but they're coming in at a very high price. We've got the restrictions on it. But that's still in the courts as to whether or not that's legal. Now, we do have Neptune squaring Neptune, which is coming up on 10/7. And the square is, again, it's a difficult angle. Neptune is current ideology versus Neptune is the ideology of the state. So what's happening is confusion. So there are blurred boundaries, sort of like what they once believed versus what they now need to reimagine. And sometimes you could think that this might be when we have a younger generation that's coming up with different beliefs than an existing generation, and they start to clash. So it doesn't necessarily have to be outside influences. It can be inside influences. It could also be drugs. Neptune is also associated with drugs. But it could be the younger generation trying to have a voice. Now, the next thing we have, which is a great angle on 10/14, is we have Neptune trining Mars. So Neptune is the vision and Mars is the action towards that vision. So this means that maybe they're going to start having some ability to visualize where they want to go, and they can go there. Now, since it's Neptune, it's compassionate, but it's strength. Neptune is also inspired. This could also indicate that they have diplomatic strength. They know where they want to go, and they know how to get there. So there's a path. So this is a positive, and it's something I'll probably be checking on to see what indications we have that this is happening. Because sometimes this goes under the radar. You realize a few years later that, oh, things changed. The next thing we have is a progression, and that's Sun trining Neptune. So this is another great one. And this is at around 10/14, the same time. So we've got two things with Neptune going on. One Neptune making and one being on Neptune itself. The Sun trining Neptune is just visionary. It means the country, in effect, the identity. And since this is a progression, it's the progressed identity of the country is able to see new visions. And it tends to have an idealistic leadership. Because the leadership of a country is usually the one that puts out that vision. So this seems like the identity of the country can move along with that. It's also growing into its ideals. So it's not so much you're saying, this is where we want to go. It's like collectively you start moving towards a place that fits. fits where you want to be and fits where the country, the people want to be. So this can be really positive. And again, like I said, I'm going to be looking around 1015 to see what changes I can sort of pick up on the country. Now, 1024 of this year, we're getting Jupiter squaring Saturn. And this is a momentary type of transit. It doesn't last a long time. But it does mean you have what? You have, in effect, opportunities, expansion that just is not sitting well with Saturn, which wants the focus and the very purposeful type of building. So they're sort of at odds with each other, which means that Jupiter, with all the opportunities, can't really have Saturn use them because Saturn wants to build responsibly. Jupiter sometimes can be just very gaseous. Let's just do something. Let's throw everything out there. So it is a time where, the structure versus the discipline and being able to grow responsibly. So this is a time where, the stock market might reflect some fluctuations, saying that we're not able to take advantage of the opportunities. Next thing we have is on 1029, we've got Uranus in conjunct Neptune. So in this case, we've got a shifting change of the vision of their ideals. And that's Uranus making that change. So it's shifting. It's an inconjunct. It can be abrupt. So we've got an abrupt shift here. In what? What do we think? So it could be more freedom. Uranus is always associated with freedom, with rebellion against what's there, looking for the new, the innovation. So all of these things are coming in effect, to say, oops, we need to make a change to our vision. Now, next thing we have is on 11/24, we've got, 24, so I just need to check that date. You've got Uranus in conjunct Uranus. So in this case, the current values, which in effect, the new and different, is not compatible with the existing. So in effect, whatever they're trying to do with innovation is not working to innovate. So again, the innovation point is where we're innovating, where we're rebellious, where we want the freedom. And what's coming down that path is not being able to get to that point in chart, that placement in effect in the country, without changing. Now, we have on 11/28, we've got Jupiter squaring Saturn coming again. So again, this is momentary. It doesn't last long, but you might have some fluctuations in the stock market. Nothing long-term. Long-term type fluctuations come with Saturn squaring Jupiter the other way around. Okay. So overall, what does this mean? It means that, Mexico is having some pains here with the tariffs, with Trump. But the leadership seems to be able to handle Trump. They're going to be growing. Their vision of who they are or who they can be growing. And that probably may not have happened if Trump hadn't started putting, his commands down on what he wants. So this could be a big step for Mexico coming up and stepping onto a bigger platform on the world stage. We'll have to see. But it does say something for the leadership. There may be some growing pains here, but hopefully when we come back next year, we'll see that, they're moving along. And remember, the countries are sort of going and trying to form alliances without the United States. So that may be a big factor here. Have a good one, and see you on the next session.